Ethan had never expected that his first mission to Zithra would turn into something so unusual. He had trained for months for this expedition, learning alien languages, customs, and survival skills, but nothing had prepared him for the moment when an alien queen pointed at him and changed the entire course of his life. Zithra was a planet of warriors, a place where strength and courage were revered above all else. Humans were rare here, considered fragile and unpredictable, and now, by sheer accident, Ethan had become the center of attention for the entire planet. It had begun as a simple observation mission. Ethan's task was to study Zithra's wildlife and military traditions without interfering. Zithrans were strict about outsiders. They allowed very few humans on their planet, and those who came had to follow strict rules. Ethan's shuttle had landed in a vast city built of glimmering metal structures, with towers stretching high above the clouds. Alien beings moved gracefully through the streets, their skin shimmering in subtle colors, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim sunlight. Even from a distance, Ethan could sense the power they radiated. The day of the ceremony, Ethan had worn the formal attire assigned to him by Zithran officials. It was heavy, almost armor-like, and covered most of his body. He felt awkward as he walked among the warriors, who all moved with natural confidence. Liara, the queen, stood at the center of the ceremony on a raised platform. She was enormous compared to humans, her presence dominating the area without effort. Her armor was sleek and reflective, adorned with intricate patterns that shimmered with movement. Every eye in the plaza was on her, yet Ethan felt an unexpected tug of fear mixed with admiration. The ceremony was meant to honor the bravest of the Zithran warriors, but fate had a different plan. A sudden roar echoed from the cliffs surrounding the city, and all attention shifted. Ethan turned and saw a massive predator leaping from the shadows. Its scales glimmered like dark metal, and its teeth were sharp enough to slice through metal plating. The crowd panicked, but Liara remained poised, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the threat. Without thinking, Ethan ran toward her, grabbing a fallen ceremonial staff. He swung it at the creature and, by sheer luck, struck it across the snout. The beast recoiled and growled, its massive eyes fixed on him. The crowd gasped, some yelling in alarm, but Liara's eyes softened slightly, an expression Ethan could barely interpret. He felt his heart pounding, every muscle in his body tense, but he refused to step back. The creature lunged again, and Ethan dodged, using the staff to block its teeth. Then, with a quick maneuver, he tripped the beast using its own momentum, causing it to crash to the ground. The crowd erupted in astonishment. Humans rarely engaged Zithran predators, let alone fought them successfully. Ethan stood there panting and sweating, unsure if he should be proud or terrified. Liara stepped forward, her gaze locking onto his. There was a long pause, and Ethan felt as if the entire planet was holding its breath. Then, in a voice that carried across the plaza, Liara declared, "This human has earned the mating reward." Ethan froze. His mind raced, trying to process the words. Mating reward? He thought. He had read about Zithran culture, but nothing had prepared him for this. He had expected admiration, maybe even gratitude, but a mating reward was an honor given to the strongest warriors to show respect and recognition. It was not meant to be romantic in the way humans understood, but the idea of being the center of attention for an entire planet made him dizzy. Officials moved quickly, escorting him toward the palace. Every step he took was observed by thousands of eyes. Holographic projections broadcast the event across Zithra, showing every detail of his actions to distant cities. Ethan realized that he had become famous without ever intending it. The crowd cheered and whispered, and some warriors nodded in approval while others glared, suspicious of this fragile human daring to interfere in their traditions. Inside the palace, Ethan was led through halls filled with alien artifacts, glowing symbols and intricate carvings. The walls seemed alive, reacting to his presence with subtle shifts in light. Liara walked beside him, her steps graceful, her posture commanding. She spoke in a calm voice, explaining the customs of the mating reward. Ethan listened carefully, trying not to show his confusion. He understood that this honor was not about romance. It was about respect, courage, and adaptability. Humans are unpredictable, Liara said, her voice both curious and approving. But you showed instinct, courage, and cleverness. That is why you were chosen. Ethan nodded, still processing the magnitude of the situation. He realized that his actions, though accidental, had earned him a place among the Zitharan warriors. Yet he also understood that being the mating reward came with responsibilities. He would have to learn their ways quickly, follow strict protocols, and avoid offending anyone, especially Liara. One wrong move could turn admiration into hostility. As he settled into the guest quarters, Ethan noticed the advanced technology around him. Doors opened automatically, floors adjusted to his weight, and holographic assistants projected information about the palace, the city, and even the rituals he was expected to participate in. He spent hours studying, trying to memorize protocols and understand the subtle nuances of Zitharan society. Every gesture, every word carried weight, and he could not afford mistakes. The first night Liara visited him, not in a threatening manner, but as a mentor. She explained more about the trials ahead. The mating reward was not a simple honor. It involved rituals, tests, and public appearances. Ethan would be scrutinized at every stage, and his actions could influence the perception of humans across Zithara. "You must understand," she said, her eyes serious. "This is not a game. Every step you take will be watched, analyzed, and remembered. You represent more than yourself." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, but he also felt a strange sense of excitement. For the first time in his life, he was in a position where his choices mattered not only to him, but to an entire world. He realized that survival alone would not be enough. He would have to excel, adapt, and think like a Zitharan while still being human. The following days were a whirlwind. Ethan was introduced to other warriors who had competed for Liara's attention in the past. Some were skeptical, eyeing him with thinly veiled disdain. Others were curious, intrigued by the human who had survived an encounter with a predator meant to challenge the strongest warriors. Each interaction was a test, and Ethan quickly learned that words, gestures, and timing mattered as much as strength or intelligence. He also began to see a different side of Liara. Despite her warrior demeanor, she was thoughtful, strategic, and surprisingly compassionate. She observed Ethan closely, not just as a participant in her tradition, but as an individual. She asked questions about Earth, humans, and Ethan's experiences, showing genuine curiosity. In return, Ethan tried to share what he could, careful to respect the cultural gap between them. One afternoon, while walking through the palace gardens, Ethan witnessed a display of Zitharan combat techniques. Warriors practiced with blades that shimmered like liquid light, performing maneuvers that seemed impossible. He realized that he had much to learn, not to match them in strength, but to understand their logic, their approach to strategy, and their sense of honor. The next challenge was announced. Ethan would face a trial that combined intelligence, agility, and decision-making. It was not combat, but a series of tests designed to evaluate adaptability under pressure. As news spread, more holographic viewers tuned in, watching the human mating reward prepare. Ethan felt the weight of expectation, yet he also felt determination rising within him. That night he lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The events of the past few days seemed surreal. He had arrived as a curious observer, and now stood as a central figure in Zitharan tradition. The thought of facing the trial tomorrow both terrified and excited him. He knew that whatever happened next would define not just his honor, but humanity's reputation on this distant planet. Sleep came reluctantly, filled with dreams of alien skies, roaring predators, and Liara's unwavering gaze. Ethan understood that his journey had only just begun. He was no longer a simple explorer. He was a symbol, a bridge between worlds, and a participant in a culture far older and more complex than he could have imagined. As the first light of Zithara's sun touched the palace, Ethan rose with determination. The trial awaited, and he was ready to face it, not just for himself, but for the respect of humanity and perhaps for the trust he had begun to feel toward Liara. The planet was watching, and there was no turning back. Ethan stepped into the garden courtyard, his heart steady, his mind focused. Around him, warriors and officials gathered, and Liara's gaze met his. He could feel the weight of thousands of eyes upon him, yet he drew strength from his humanity. Today he would prove that courage, wit, and empathy could transcend worlds. Today, he would take the first step on a path that could change his life forever. Ethan awoke to the soft hum of Zithara's morning, the twin suns casting long shadows over the palace grounds. The day of his first trial had arrived, and a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy pulsed through him. Though he had trained for months in simulations and studied every bit of information available about Zithran culture, nothing could truly prepare him for being in the center of a live trial, watched by millions of beings across the planet. He dressed in the ceremonial uniform provided for the trial. Light armor that allowed movement but still displayed respect for the customs of Zithra. The design was intricate, with shimmering lines that seemed to shift color as he moved. As he tightened the straps, he felt a surge of determination. Today, he was not just a human visitor. He was a representative of humanity, standing before a civilization that had mastered survival, strategy, and honor for millennia. Liara appeared at the door of his quarters, her presence commanding yet calm. She gave him a small nod of encouragement. "The trial begins soon," she said. Her voice carried no pressure, only clarity. "Remember, this is not about strength alone. You must think, adapt, and act with your instincts. The entire planet is watching, but do not let the attention distract you." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He tried to steady his breathing, reminding himself that he had survived the Predator incident and that he could handle what lay ahead. "I understand," he said, though internally he still felt the weight of every eye upon him. They walked through the palace corridors, which were alive with movement. Holographic screens projected Ethan's image and details about his role as the mating reward. Citizens across Zithra were already watching, their curiosity and judgment directed at him. As they entered the trial arena, Ethan saw the scale of what lay before him. It was massive, an open space surrounded by high walls with platforms and obstacles designed to test a variety of skills. Warriors observed from above, while officials monitored from glass chambers. Liara gestured toward the starting point. "The trial will have 3 stages. First, a test of intelligence, then agility and strategy. Finally, a combination of all 3. You must adapt quickly. Hesitation will be costly." Ethan approached the starting line, noticing the subtle details that indicated traps and challenges. The first stage required him to solve a series of mechanical puzzles, devices that responded to logic, patterns, and careful observation. While Zithran warriors could rely on strength or speed to brute force their way, humans like him had a different advantage: creativity and lateral thinking. He knelt in front of the first device, examining its panels. There were symbols, levers, and glowing orbs that pulsed rhythmically. Ethan's mind raced. He tested a combination, hesitated, then tried a different sequence. The device emitted a series of beeps indicating partial success. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he carefully adjusted his approach. He realized that the puzzle required not only observation but timing, matching the rhythm of the pulses with specific lever movements. Minutes passed, and the audience watched in silent anticipation. Every slight movement of his hands was magnified on the holographic broadcasts. Finally, with a precise adjustment, the device clicked and a panel opened, revealing the next section. The crowd erupted in subtle applause, a mix of surprise and admiration. Ethan allowed himself a small, relieved smile but did not celebrate. There was much more to come. The next stage required agility and speed. Ethan was guided to an obstacle course filled with moving platforms, spinning walls, and gaps that demanded precise timing. Zithran warriors had trained for decades to navigate such environments, but Ethan's human instincts, honed through years of climbing, running, and outdoor exploration, allowed him to anticipate movements differently. He leapt onto the first platform, feeling it tilt under his weight. Balancing carefully, he timed his jump to the next moving wall. Behind him, a massive holographic audience tracked every motion, their reactions flashing across screens throughout Zithra. He felt pressure, but also a strange exhilaration. Each successful jump, each narrowly avoided trap boosted his confidence. Halfway through, a moving barrier swung unexpectedly, forcing him to react instinctively. He ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a hard strike. Gasps echoed through the arena. Though Ethan had learned not to be distracted, he adjusted his strategy, using momentum to his advantage, and completed the course faster than expected. Some warriors nodded in respect, impressed that a human could navigate a test meant for seasoned Zithrans. The final stage combined intelligence, strategy, and agility. Ethan was led to a chamber where multiple holographic enemies and complex devices filled the space. He was required to retrieve a series of glowing artifacts while avoiding traps, solving puzzles, and anticipating enemy movements. The challenge was layered, demanding simultaneous thinking and action. Ethan paused, taking a deep breath. He knew he could not rely on speed alone. He observed the patterns, noted the predictable rotations, and began moving. Each artifact required a different approach. One demanded careful timing, another required solving a riddle displayed in alien symbols, and another needed him to manipulate the environment to open a path. As he progressed, he noticed subtle signs that some obstacles were designed not to be solved by strength, but by clever observation. Hidden levers, shadows that hinted at traps and sequences that could be completed only by deduction. Ethan's mind worked furiously, translating patterns and symbols into actions. A sudden surprise. A holographic predator, faster than anything he had seen before, lunged toward him. Ethan ducked and rolled, using a platform to spring onto a higher ledge. The crowd gasped, some murmuring disbelief. He realized that humans had an advantage in unpredictability. While Zitharan warriors often trained for specific scenarios, Ethan could improvise, think differently, and act outside expected patterns. Minutes felt like hours. Sweat poured down his face, muscles ached, but he pushed forward. Each artifact collected brought him closer to the end, and the holographic enemies became increasingly complex. He began to see a rhythm in their patterns and adapted his movements accordingly. Finally, with a combination of speed, logic, and courage, he retrieved the last artifact and activated the final device. The arena erupted in applause. Ethan stood panting, exhausted but triumphant. Liara stepped forward, her eyes glowing with approval. She nodded, a rare smile forming on her face. "You have passed the first trial," she said. "You are not merely a visitor. You are a symbol of ingenuity and courage." Ethan's chest swelled with pride, yet he remained cautious. He knew that admiration could quickly turn to jealousy or suspicion. Other warriors approached, some offering respect, others observing silently, their expressions unreadable. Ethan realized that earning their respect would be an ongoing challenge. After the trial, Ethan was led to a quiet chamber where he could rest and recover. Liara joined him, this time in a more relaxed setting. She asked about Earth, his experiences, and how humans approached problem-solving. Ethan shared what he could, careful not to reveal weaknesses. He noticed that she listened intently, not just as a queen but as a strategist, evaluating every detail. "You have a different way of thinking," Liara said. "It is unpredictable, and that makes you valuable. The planet has seen you face challenges in ways we did not anticipate. That is why you are the mating reward, not because of strength but because of perspective." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. He understood that his role was not to become a warrior in the traditional sense, but to bridge two worlds. Humanity's adaptability and ingenuity could complement Zitharan's strength and strategy. As the day ended, he walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on the events. The suns of Zithara were setting, casting golden light over the alien flora. He felt a strange sense of connection to this world. Despite the danger, the unfamiliar customs, and the constant scrutiny, he sensed potential for understanding, trust, and cooperation. That night, he prepared for the next challenge: public ceremonies, more trials, and interactions that would test not only his skill, but his ability to navigate the complex social web of Zithara. He knew the planet was watching, and each decision could shape perceptions of humanity. Lying in his quarters, Ethan thought about the predator he had faced, the puzzles, and the agility course. Each test had revealed a truth. Humans could survive and thrive in ways Zitharans had not anticipated. The planet had begun to see him not as a fragile outsider, but as a capable, clever, and adaptable being. Sleep finally came, but his mind remained alert, filled with anticipation for what lay ahead. Tomorrow he would face new challenges, encounter more warriors, and continue the journey that had begun with an accidental act of bravery. He understood that the trials were not only about proving himself, but about building a connection, gaining respect, and showing that humanity had a place among the stars. Ethan closed his eyes, taking comfort in one thought. Whatever happened, he had already started changing the way Zithara saw humans, and that, he realized, was the true beginning of his journey. Ethan awoke to the faint hum of Zithara's morning, feeling the lingering ache of the previous day's trials in his muscles. He had passed the first test, navigated the agility course, and proven that humans could think in unpredictable ways. Yet he knew that the real challenge was only beginning. Today, the trials would grow more complex, testing not only his intelligence and agility, but also his ability to understand Zitharan culture, politics, and instincts. Liara entered his quarters. With her usual calm confidence, her presence immediately grounding him. "Today you will face the trial of respect," she said. Her eyes studied him carefully as if measuring his readiness. "This trial will determine how you are viewed not only by me, but by the entire planet. You must earn the respect of our people, our warriors, and our leaders. Courage and cleverness alone will not suffice." Ethan nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. He had survived physical challenges, but this trial would be different. It required perception, diplomacy, and understanding, the very qualities that made humans unique. The trial arena was a grand amphitheater, surrounded by spectators from across Zithara. Holographic screens displayed Ethan's face and his previous successes, creating waves of anticipation throughout the planet. Thousands of eyes watched him, move, analyzing every detail, and Ethan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The first part of the trial involved interacting with Zitharan warriors in a series of complex scenarios. Some were designed to provoke, testing his patience and composure. Others required collaboration, strategy, and understanding unspoken signals. Ethan quickly realized that brute strength would achieve nothing here. He had to learn subtlety, timing, and cultural nuance. His first interaction was with a tall warrior named Kale, known for his pride and quick temper. Kale deliberately provoked Ethan with challenging questions about humanity, questioning the worth of a human compared to Zitharan warriors. Ethan took a deep breath, recalling the etiquette Liara had explained. He answered calmly, highlighting humanity's adaptability, creativity, and capacity for cooperation. The crowd murmured as Kale's expression shifted from irritation to grudging respect. It was a small victory but significant. Ethan understood that earning respect required patience, humility, and the ability to remain calm under scrutiny. Every word, gesture, and glance mattered. Next, he faced a scenario where he had to negotiate, a simulated conflict between two factions of Zitharan warriors. The task seemed simple, but the challenge lay in reading unspoken signals, understanding the history between the factions, and proposing a solution that respected their traditions. Ethan observed, listened, and used logic paired with empathy. He suggested compromises that honored each faction's concerns, demonstrating that humans could mediate without undermining Zitharan authority. The observers nodded, impressed that a human could navigate their intricate social dynamics with insight. Liara watched closely, her expression unreadable but attentive, noting every decision Ethan made. The final part of the trial of respect involved a public demonstration of courage and integrity. Ethan was led to an open field outside the amphitheater, where a simulation of a dangerous mission awaited. He was to retrieve an important artifact from a precarious terrain filled with hazards, while ensuring that no one else was harmed. Ethan moved carefully, balancing speed with caution. Along the way, he encountered holographic allies who required guidance. He coordinated their actions using clear instructions while remaining alert to unexpected dangers. When a simulated predator lunged from the shadows, Ethan reacted instinctively, protecting his allies and completing the mission. As he returned with the artifact, the crowd erupted in applause. His actions demonstrated not only courage but also compassion, foresight, and leadership, qualities highly valued by Zitharans. Liara stepped forward, her eyes reflecting admiration. "You have earned more than respect," she said. "You have shown that a human can embody our values in ways we did not anticipate." Despite the accolades, Ethan remained aware that not all observers were pleased. Some warriors muttered in discontent, questioning how a human could gain recognition so quickly. Others whispered about the potential disruption his presence might cause in traditional hierarchies. Ethan realized that his journey would involve not only personal growth, but also navigating political and cultural tensions. In the following days, Ethan was invited to participate in ceremonial gatherings, where he observed and learned Zitharan traditions in depth. He studied their combat rituals, art, music, and philosophy. Liara guided him through each lesson, explaining the significance behind every practice. Through these interactions, Ethan began to understand that the mating reward was as much about bridging worlds as it was about honoring individual achievement. During a quiet evening walk in the palace gardens, Ethan and Liara shared a rare moment of conversation without the pressure of an audience. The twin suns of Zithra cast warm light across the alien flora, highlighting shimmering leaves and delicate flowers that seemed to respond to movement. Liara spoke of her experiences as queen, the responsibilities she bore, and the complexities of leadership. Ethan listened intently, fascinated by the depth of her perspective. "You face scrutiny unlike any other," Liara said. "But you have adapted. That is why this trial is more than a test of skill. It is a test of character. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability can be a strength when guided by wisdom." Ethan nodded, realizing that every choice he made had consequences far beyond himself. The admiration he had gained was not merely personal, it reflected on humanity as a whole. He felt a sense of responsibility that was both daunting and motivating. The next phase of the trial involved collaboration with Zithran strategists. Ethan was tasked with devising a plan to defend a city from an approaching threat, using limited resources and working alongside alien commanders. He applied principles of human strategy, innovation, improvisation, and adaptation, while respecting Zithran methods. He proposed unconventional tactics, combining defensive structures with mobile units to confuse the enemy, and contingency plans that accounted for unexpected variables. The commanders were initially skeptical, but soon recognized the value of his approach. The plan was deemed sound, and Ethan's contribution was acknowledged as both creative and practical. Word of his accomplishments spread rapidly across Zithra. Citizens tuned in to observe a human who was earning respect, not through sheer strength, but through intelligence, empathy, and courage. Ethan became a symbol of what humanity could offer, a species capable of creativity, adaptability, and problem-solving in ways that even advanced civilizations found intriguing. Despite his growing fame, Ethan remained humble. He knew that admiration could easily turn into envy or hostility. Some warriors still viewed him as an outsider, a disruption to tradition, and Ethan had to navigate these tensions carefully. He learned to read subtle cues, noticing when a glance suggested challenge or when a nod signaled approval. Every interaction became a lesson in diplomacy, perception, and patience. One evening, Liara approached him with a more personal challenge. She asked him to participate in a ritual that involved storytelling and sharing experiences, an essential aspect of Zithran culture meant to build trust and understanding. Ethan recounted his journey from Earth to Zithra, his fears and his motivations. Liara listened attentively, nodding and asking questions that encouraged reflection and insight. Through this exchange, Ethan realized that respect was not granted merely by action or achievement. It was earned through honesty, integrity, and the willingness to connect across cultural boundaries. He felt a growing bond with Liara, a connection built on mutual understanding and shared experience rather than ceremony or obligation. The day of the final segment of the trial of respect arrived. Ethan faced a scenario designed to test his ability to act under intense scrutiny while making ethical decisions. A simulated crisis unfolded before him. A group of civilians trapped in a collapsing structure with limited resources to save them. He had to prioritize, strategize, and act decisively, knowing that any misstep could result in failure. Ethan took command calmly, directing rescue efforts with clarity and precision. He ensured that everyone was accounted for, using both human ingenuity and the lessons he had learned from Zithran training. The simulation concluded successfully, and the crowd erupted in approval. Liara's gaze met his, a mixture of pride and admiration evident in her eyes. "You have surpassed expectations," she said. "You have earned the respect of our people, our warriors, and our leaders. You are not merely a participant in our traditions. You are a bridge between our worlds." Ethan felt a surge of emotion, realizing that he had not only survived, but thrived. His human qualities, creativity, empathy, and adaptability had proven valuable in ways even the Zitherans had not anticipated. He understood that his journey was far from over, but he now held a place of recognition and trust that could shape his path on Zithera. As the sun set, Ethan walked through the palace gardens with Liara, reflecting on the trials, the lessons, and the growing connection between them. He knew that challenges still lay ahead, trials that would test not only his skills, but his character, courage, and humanity. Yet he felt ready, strengthened by experience and the knowledge. Ethan awoke to the golden light of Zithera's twin suns reflecting across the palace grounds. The events of the past trials still echoed in his mind. He had earned respect, faced challenges, and begun to understand Liara and the Zitheran way of life. Yet today felt different. There was a sense of tension in the air, as though the entire planet was holding its breath. He sensed that whatever awaited him would test more than his skills. It would test his courage, judgment, and the trust he had built with Liara and the people. Liara entered his quarters without announcement, her presence steady and reassuring. "The next trial is not only about your abilities," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It is about your understanding of our culture, the choices you make, and your capacity to act when the stakes are highest. You will face challenges that cannot be solved by instinct alone." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He knew she was speaking of the upcoming public trial, a test designed not only for him but for the entire planet to observe. His mind raced with the possibilities, but he forced himself to remain calm. Confidence was essential, not arrogance, but the quiet certainty that he could rely on what he had learned and his own human ingenuity. The trial arena was vast, stretching across multiple levels with open spaces, towers, and artificial landscapes that simulated both urban and wilderness environments. Thousands of spectators gathered in person, while millions more watched via holographic projections across Zithera. Every detail of Ethan's actions would be broadcast, analyzed, and discussed. He realized that his every decision could influence perceptions of humanity across the planet. Liara led him to the center of the arena, where a council of elders, warriors, and officials awaited. They were the highest authorities on Zithera, guardians of tradition and the rules of the mating reward. Their gaze was sharp, assessing not only his abilities but his character. Ethan felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The decisions he made here would echo far beyond this trial. The first part of the trial involved a series of challenges designed to test adaptability and decision-making under pressure. Ethan was presented with multiple scenarios simultaneously: a simulated conflict, a crisis requiring rescue, and a puzzle demanding logic and observation. He quickly realized that he would have to prioritize, act decisively, and coordinate with others. Tasks that required both strategy and empathy. A holographic simulation of a city under threat appeared before him. Civilians were trapped in buildings, while enemies approached from multiple directions. Ethan analyzed the situation, observing patterns and predicting movements. He directed virtual allies to safety, using a combination of logic, intuition, and human ingenuity. The holographic audience reacted instantly, some gasping at his choices, others whispering in admiration. Next, he faced a puzzle embedded in the terrain itself. Levers, lights, and symbols had to be activated in a specific sequence to unlock a path through the simulation. Ethan studied the symbols carefully, noting subtle cues in the patterns. Drawing on his knowledge of human problem-solving and the lessons Liara had taught him, he manipulated the environment with precision. Each correct movement brought him closer to the next stage, and the holographic spectators displayed their appreciation. Suddenly, the simulation introduced a wild element. A massive predator, more dangerous than the one he had faced before, appeared on the landscape. It moved quickly, its senses sharp, forcing Ethan to improvise. He used the environment to his advantage, luring the creature into a trap he created using movable obstacles. The predator was neutralized, and Ethan's strategic thinking became apparent to the audience. He was not just surviving, he was mastering the scenario. The crowd erupted in applause, but Ethan knew the trial was far from over. The final challenge would be the most demanding, a test of moral judgment. He was presented with a scenario where he could save a small group of citizens or take a risk to protect a much larger population. The choice was deliberate, forcing him to weigh consequences, risk, and human values against the rigid expectations of Zitharan tradition. Ethan paused, considering the options carefully. He remembered Liara's words. Courage, intelligence, and empathy must guide his actions. He devised a plan that minimized harm while maximizing protection for both groups. It was risky, requiring precise timing and coordination, but it reflected his understanding of responsibility, ethics, and the value of life. He executed the plan flawlessly. The simulation concluded successfully and the audience erupted in approval. Liara stepped forward, her eyes reflecting pride and recognition. "You have shown courage, wisdom, and compassion," she said. "Your choices honor not only yourself but your people. Humanity is now seen in a new light on Zithara." Despite the accolades, Ethan remained alert. He knew that respect could quickly turn to envy or resentment. Some Zitharan factions were skeptical of his sudden rise, viewing him as a challenge to traditional hierarchies. Ethan had to navigate carefully, maintaining humility while asserting his competence. In the days that followed, Ethan participated in ceremonial events, learning more about Zitharan history, customs, and governance. Each interaction was a lesson in diplomacy, observation, and adaptability. He watched how leaders made decisions, how warriors demonstrated honor, and how citizens respected tradition while embracing innovation. Liara continued to guide him, offering insights into Zitharan culture and encouraging him to observe carefully before acting. Their interactions deepened their mutual understanding. While Ethan admired her strength and wisdom, Liara began to see humanity in a new way, resourceful, adaptable, and capable of ethical decision-making. Their bond grew, built on shared experiences, respect and trust rather than obligation or ceremony. One afternoon, Ethan was invited to attend a council meeting, an unprecedented honor for a human. The council discussed potential threats from a rival civilization, and Ethan's perspective was requested. He offered strategies based on human experience, emphasizing flexibility, unpredictability, and the ability to adapt to unforeseen challenges. The council listened intently, some skeptical, others intrigued. By the end of the meeting, his ideas were recognized as valuable contributions, further cementing his role as a bridge between humans and Zitharans. The following challenge was announced: a collaborative exercise designed to test leadership, strategy, and ethical decision-making under pressure. Ethan was paired with Zitharan commanders to plan a defensive operation against a simulated invasion. He combined human ingenuity with Zitharan techniques, proposing unconventional tactics that leveraged both strengths. The commanders initially hesitated but eventually recognized the merit of his approach. The exercise was broadcast live across Zithara, and the public response was overwhelmingly positive. Ethan became a symbol of human potential, demonstrating that intelligence, empathy, and adaptability could rival even the most experienced Zitharan warriors. His presence inspired admiration and curiosity, challenging preconceived notions about humanity. However, the growing attention also brought new challenges. Rival factions began to test him, attempting to exploit weaknesses or provoke errors. Ethan faced these attempts calmly, relying on observation, reasoning, and the lessons he had learned. Each success reinforced his reputation and strengthened his confidence. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Liara walked through the palace gardens. The soft light reflected off shimmering leaves, casting a golden glow over the landscape. Liara spoke of her experiences as queen, the burdens of leadership, and the importance of wisdom and integrity. Ethan shared his perspective as a human, emphasizing curiosity, learning, and the value of collaboration. "You have shown remarkable growth," Liara said, "not because of strength alone, but because of your mind, your choices, and your integrity. The planet has watched and learned, and humanity's reputation has grown because of you." Ethan felt a mix of pride and humility. He realized that his journey was no longer just about survival or recognition. It was about building trust, forging connections, and demonstrating the value of human qualities in a world that valued strength above all else. That night, as he prepared for rest, Ethan reflected on the past trials and the lessons they had taught him. He knew the final stages of the mating reward ceremony would bring even greater scrutiny and challenge, but he also felt prepared. He had earned respect, demonstrated courage, and shown the value of human ingenuity. He lay in his quarters, the sounds of Zithra's night filling the room, and thought about the path ahead. Tomorrow would bring new trials, interactions, and opportunities to prove humanity's worth. Yet for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of calm confidence. He was no longer an accidental participant. He was a symbol, a bridge between worlds, and a testament to the potential of human courage, intelligence, and integrity. As sleep claimed him, he envisioned the future, the planet watching, the trials continuing, and his bond with Liara growing stronger. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with determination, wisdom, and the unique qualities that only a human could bring to Zithra. The twin suns of Zithra rose slowly, casting long shadows over the palace grounds. Ethan stood on the balcony, gazing at the sprawling city below, knowing that today would mark the culmination of his journey. The trials, the challenges, the scrutiny of an entire planet, all had led to this moment. Today he would face the final ceremony of the mating reward, a culmination of skill, courage, intelligence, and respect. He felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Despite months of preparation, training, and understanding Zithran culture, nothing could truly prepare him for the spectacle that awaited. Millions of eyes were upon him, from the palace to the farthest reaches of Zithra, yet alongside the weight of expectation, there was a sense of calm determination. He had proven himself in ways both subtle and extraordinary. He had survived, adapted, and grown. Liara approached, her presence steady and commanding. She wore ceremonial attire that shimmered in the morning light, her eyes bright with focus. "Today will test more than skill," she said softly. "It will test your ability to act with integrity, courage, and wisdom in front of the entire planet. The outcome will shape not only your future, but the perception of humanity here on Zithra." Ethan nodded, swallowing the nervous lump in his throat. He understood the significance. This was no longer just about personal achievement. It was about trust, leadership, and bridging the gap between two worlds. The arena was unlike anything Ethan had seen before. It was massive, stretching beyond the eye, filled with platforms, towers, and chambers, each designed to challenge different aspects of skill and character. The crowd, both present and holographically projected, was enormous. Their attention was fixed on him. Every heartbeat, every movement, every decision amplified across the planet. The first segment of the ceremony was a test of intellect and strategy. Ethan was required to solve complex puzzles while simultaneously managing dynamic scenarios. Each action affected outcomes elsewhere in the arena, forcing him to think multiple steps ahead. He knelt in front of the first puzzle, analyzing its panels. Symbols glowed and shifted rhythmically. Levers moved in intricate patterns, and holographic enemies simulated challenges that demanded quick thinking. Ethan's hands moved deliberately, adjusting levers in time with the sequences, anticipating chain reactions before they happened. Minutes passed, with the audience holding their collective breath. Ethan paused, considered, then made a decisive move. The puzzle clicked, signaling completion, and the first stage of the ceremony was conquered. A ripple of admiration passed through the crowd, visible even on the holographic projections. Next came the test of courage and agility. Ethan faced a labyrinth filled with shifting platforms, narrow ledges, and sudden hazards. Zithran warriors had trained for decades to navigate such challenges, but Ethan relied on human instinct, balance, and observation. He moved with careful precision, timing jumps, rolls, and vaults perfectly. At one point, a simulated predator lunged from the shadows, faster and more cunning than any Ethan had encountered. Instinct took over. He rolled to the side, used a movable platform as leverage, and guided the creature into a containment field. The audience reacted with awe. Even seasoned Zithrans were impressed that a human could navigate the course so skillfully. The final stage of the ceremony was the most demanding, a test of moral judgment, leadership, and empathy under extreme scrutiny. A simulated crisis unfolded. Multiple groups were in danger, resources were limited, and every decision carried weighty consequences. Ethan had to prioritize, protect lives, and act decisively, all while maintaining the integrity he had demonstrated throughout the trials. He quickly assessed the scenario, noting the safest approach that balanced efficiency with care. He coordinated movements, giving precise instructions, and adapted to unpredictable challenges. A group of holographic civilians became trapped by a collapsing structure. Ethan risked his own position to rescue them, ensuring no one was harmed. The holographic predators and simulated hazards advanced, but his strategy worked flawlessly. When the simulation concluded, the audience erupted. The applause was deafening, echoing across the amphitheater and through holographic channels throughout the planet. Ethan had not only succeeded in every challenge, but he had demonstrated the very qualities that made humans valuable allies: courage, intelligence, adaptability, and empathy. Liara stepped forward, her eyes locked onto his. The crowd quieted, waiting for her judgment. She raised her voice clear and authoritative, her words resonating across the arena. "Ethan of Earth," she said, "you have demonstrated bravery, wisdom, and integrity. You have earned respect, trust, and admiration, not only from me but from all Zitherans who have watched. Your actions have shown that humanity has a place among us, and that courage and intelligence know no species boundaries." The crowd erupted into cheers once more. Ethan felt his chest swell, but he remained composed. He understood that the ceremony was not about personal glory. It was a symbol of unity, understanding, and the bridge he had built between two civilizations. Liara extended her hand toward him, and Ethan stepped forward. In the tradition of Zithera, the mating reward was more than a ceremony. It was an acknowledgement of trust, admiration, and partnership. By accepting it, Ethan would signify a connection that transcended species, culture, and planet. He took her hand, feeling a surge of emotion and understanding. This moment was not only about him or Liara, it was about demonstrating to the entire planet that cooperation, respect, and mutual understanding were more powerful than fear, prejudice, or tradition. As the crowd watched, Ethan and Liara walked through the ceremonial grounds together. Their steps were deliberate, synchronized, a symbol of balance between two worlds. Citizens of Zithera, warriors, and leaders all observed, witnessing an unprecedented event. A human had earned trust, respect, and recognition in ways few could have imagined. Throughout the day, Ethan participated in additional rituals that emphasized collaboration, shared values, and the responsibilities that came with recognition. Each step reinforced the lessons he had learned. Courage, empathy, integrity, and intelligence were universally respected. By evening, the ceremony concluded with a grand gathering in the palace gardens. The twin suns set, casting a warm glow over the city, highlighting alien flora that shimmered like liquid gold. Liara spoke to the assembled crowd, praising the qualities that Ethan had demonstrated and the potential for humans and Zitherans to work together. Ethan stood beside her, proud yet humble. He knew that his journey had not been about winning a prize or achieving personal glory. It had been about proving that humanity could rise to challenges, adapt, and inspire trust. The admiration and respect he had earned were not only for himself, but for every human who might follow in his footsteps. As the stars appeared in the Zitheran sky, Ethan and Liara shared a quiet moment. The twin moons reflected in their eyes, a reminder that despite differences in worlds, life, courage, and understanding could create bonds that transcended species. "You have changed the way my planet sees humanity," Liara said softly, her gaze steady and sincere. "You have shown that courage, intelligence, and empathy are qualities we value above all. You are not merely a visitor. You are a symbol, a bridge, and a trusted ally." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known. "I only tried to do what I thought was right," he said. "I wanted to show that humans can adapt, learn, and respect others no matter where they are." Liara nodded. "And in doing so, you have changed Zithera. The planet has witnessed your actions, your decisions, and your heart. You are the mating reward, not just in title, but in the trust and admiration you have earned. Today, humanity stands alongside us as equals." The celebration continued late into the night. Citizens, warriors, and officials all expressed their respect, admiration, and curiosity about humans. Holographic broadcasts carried images of the ceremony to the farthest reaches of Zithera, inspiring conversations, reflection, and a newfound appreciation for the qualities humans brought to their galaxy. Ethan realized that his journey had been about more than survival, intelligence, or courage. It had been about connection. Through every trial, every choice, and every interaction, he had demonstrated the value of humanity in ways that transcended strength or tradition. He had earned respect, trust, and the beginnings of understanding between two worlds. As the celebration waned and night fully embraced Zithra, Ethan and Liara walked through the palace gardens once more. The soft glow of alien flowers lit their path, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of the distant ocean. "This is only the beginning," Liara said. "There will be new challenges, new responsibilities, and new opportunities. But you have proven yourself worthy of trust, and I will stand beside you as we face what comes next." Ethan looked at her, feeling a sense of connection and purpose deeper than he had ever imagined. "Then we face it together," he said. In that moment, under the twin moons and the gaze of an entire planet, Ethan understood that his journey had transformed him. He was no longer an outsider, an accidental participant, or merely the mating reward. He was a symbol of humanity's courage, intelligence, and capacity to inspire trust across the stars. And with that understanding, he felt ready for whatever challenges awaited, knowing that he